Yeah.
We are live on YouTube.
Thank you. One more minute. Amanda, do we-
Record who's there?
No, we don't. It's no. Oh, we don't need a form. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. At this point, we're going to get our workshop going. At the beginning of the year, we're actually, one of our meetings, we started off with a pledge, another one we didn't, but I would like to start off with a pledge of allegiance here this morning, and I would ask the Supervisor Beatty, please lead at that.
Okay. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic that stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. While attendance is not required for this, Amanda does, our clerk of the board does keep note of who's here. We don't have a formal roll call. And we do not have a formal approval of the minutes from our last workshop meeting. But I would ask you to take a look at it. And if in fact there are any corrections or observations to those, to please let our clerk of the board know. I will also today just again thank those of you that have made a point to be with us and participate in our workshop. At the beginning of the year in our rules of the board, we had identified workshops on a bi-monthly basis to be called at the discretion of the chair. The purpose of these workshops were identified to have presentations or trainings to our board members. To date, we've been able to have 3 now presentations or 3 workshops, which have included everything from discussing the need for a parliamentarian and Robert's rules of the board, presentations from historical societies, soil and water, the hospitality task force, and many other topics that have been important to our community that warranted more time than just we were able to provide in our committee meetings, but also the attention of our full board and our public. At this point in time, I'm excited today to be able to not only have a presentation from the committee that this board asked to be created, our septic transfer law committee. And I know Supervisor Bramer will be starting off that discussion at 5 o'clock to present that. But also today we're going to hear both from our tourism department director and from our events coordinator to talk a little bit more about occupancy tax, the role of our tourism department, and then to share both with the board and the public, the municipal application, as well as the overall event funding application. So I know we have a busy hour for tourism. We thank you very much for your hard work and for the informative presentation you are about to provide to not only us, but to the public via YouTube. And I have to take a quick appointment very quickly. I would just ask that our vice chair sit in for a few minutes as chair for me, please. Thank you very much. Joanne, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I do have a PowerPoint to go along with my presentation today. Thank you. Okay, we can click right along to number 2. So the overview today will be all things occupancy tax in Warren County. And part of that is the tourism department as a department, and part 2 is all of the other things that we do spend occ tax on. So what is occupancy tax? We'll start at the very basic. That is 4% that's collected on overnight lodging and short-term rentals. So the breakdown of this money for 2022, partially the tourism department, and our budget is $2,400,000 and change. And then all of the other things that fall under the 0002 code for another $3,200,000. So we will break those out as we go through the presentation. In terms of the tourism department, what is our mission? What do we do? We work to responsibly promote and support the tourism industry in Warren County. The Lake George area is an iconic tourism vacation destination. We are within 1 day's drive for over 60 million people, and we are an enviable geographic location. We're almost at the intersection of I-87 and I-90. So that brings some primary markets to us, and our number one market would be New York and Metro New Jersey area. We have been a generational and perennial favorite for many decades, and we will attract that market in addition to looking at new markets, millennials and Gen Z and Gen X, through all of the promotion that we do. So how do we go about promoting the Lake George area? We have a website, visit lakegeorge.com. Hopefully you've all been there. We have a significant social media presence. We do some print collateral, digital media, connected television, broadcast television, fam visits, influencers, bloggers, shows, newsletters, and e-blasts. So we endeavor every day to get our name, Warren County, the Lake George area, and all of our communities out to that traveling public who might be liking to take a vacation, and we want them to come to our destination. The tourism department primarily promotes to the consumer market. We do promote to the motor coach and international market, and then we contract with the Lake George Regional Chamber and CVB to promote the meeting, convention, small group, and wedding market. So how do we go about doing this? Our website, as I mentioned, is primarily all of our advertising, whether it's television, digital, print, everything drives traffic to our website. I hope that you've been there. Check it out for seasonal things to see and do, calendar of events. Our sessions have been increasing year over year since I began as director. And this year we will exceed 2 million sessions. So anytime you as a user go to a website, you may click around on several pages, and that's referred to as a single session. So for us to have, we're approaching 2 million sessions right now, and that's the most that we have ever had. So I chalk that up to success, all of our advertising driving people to that website. Our organic search is up 64% over 2019. So organic meaning we do not pay any money for that. It's just people that happen to be searching, I want to vacation in the Lake George area or Warren County, and our website comes up as the result. I will note that we have a new vendor in place who is currently working on a brand new website for us, and we should unveil that shortly into the new year, 2022. BBG&G has been working with us on that. You probably, if you're in my committee, hear me talk about social media all the time. Most of what we do on Facebook is event promotion. So Casey pulled out a couple of our event posts that have performed well. The Balloon Festival certainly just took place recently. Lots of engagement and high interest there. But all of our events, we have a tiered category of tier 1, 2, and 3, and we do put advertising or boosted dollars behind our event posts to try to reach out to not only our followers, but people who are not following us who may have an interest in visiting the area. So just a couple of samples there, one from Facebook and the one on the right is from Instagram. We have 355,000 Facebook followers and 35,000 Instagram followers, and all of those are highly engaged. Between Casey and Tanya helping her out a little bit on just replying to the comments, takes up a great deal of time, but I think it's time well spent engaging with our audience. We also have a presence on Twitter and Pinterest, and Casey just created her first TikTok video. We are tiptoeing into TikTok, but really she's using that as a platform to create a little bit of a video, and then she shared that on Facebook and Instagram. So aside from being our photographer, she's our social media coordinator. One of the contracts that we spend a considerable amount of time and money on is with Working Pictures. And here is a photo of them. Actually, I think it's clickable, Tammy, the way Paul set it up, that you should see. They were here a week or so ago for a video shoot. Click on the image and see if the video rolls. And maybe not, but so we contract with Working Pictures to provide videos and micro videos for us. So that would be our commercials that we do have on broadcast television and connected TV. We also use them on social media and digital advertising, and we've had a number of micro videos. You may have seen just this spring, we released the spring break video. We had factory outlets, winter carnival, Maple Days. This, it was about 2 weeks ago they were up when they happened to be at the Great Escape. And they're working on a summer of 2022 commercial and video for us. And additionally, an outdoor recreation video, micro video. We know that outdoor recreation has just taken off in the last couple of years, and we recognize that even before pandemic, we knew that we were a wonderful outdoor recreation destination. So when Working Pictures was here, they captured mountain biking, hiking, kayaking, and whitewater rafting, in addition to some of our main attractions. So you will see that next summer for the outdoor rec and new summer commercial. Another one of our contracts is with Workshop out of Lake Placid, and that would be our media buy. We do spend up to $1 million with Workshop over a variety of platforms. The goal is always to drive brand awareness of the Lake George area, to increase and send traffic to our website, and to position Warren County and the Lake George area as the summer vacation, the year-round place to visit. Our audience segments are largely leisure travelers and outdoor enthusiasts. Some of the tactics that Workshop places for us: traditional television, again, that broadcast TV I may have mentioned in our committee meeting is bumpered around the news broadcast time of day or on news stations. And as people get away from broadcasting cable television, they're over on connected TV. So we've been on connected TV for a number of years, and that always performs very well for us. Workshop also places paid social, native advertising digitally, event retargeting, and paid search. I have a couple of examples on the next page of some of those things. In the upper right, left-hand corner, that's one of our, I think that was last fall's video, so that could be broadcast or connected TV. Some of the key search words, so if you type in, fall events in Lake George, our website would result, or if you type in things to do Lake George area, our website would result, and that drives more traffic to our website. On the far right is just an example of a paid social ad, and it looks like if you're on Facebook and you happen to be scrolling through, it just looks like any other post that you would see. So it's not really invasive or intrusive as you're scrolling through. So when we place these, our engagement is always very good. Our click-through rates, cost per click is low. I did actually just receive a report from Workshop, the summer campaign in its entirety. So that would be May through the end of August. It's about 13 pages, and I've just started diving through some of that, but I could certainly share that with the entire committee. When you look at how we break up our spending, approximately 60% of the Workshop spend is on digital placement and only 40% on broadcast media. So how do we measure all of that? Yes, we're spending lots of money. We're getting the word out there. We're on social media. We're on television. What does that mean? We can measure through a number of performance indicators, and we all want to talk about OCTAX all the time because it's a wonderful number that has been increasing since the OCTAX law was started in 2003. We started collecting tax in 2004, and with the exception of, I think, 2009, that number has been increasing every year. So that translates into, well, more people have been coming to visit our destination. Another factor is certainly the ADR, the average daily rate that people are willing to pay. But as long as they're here, if the rate is increasing and they're willing to pay that rate, then we know that we're doing a good job of one, getting the word out there, and two, providing a wonderful vacation for them. So take a look at the bottom number there. In 2020, we collected $4,238,000 in OP tax. And Mike Swan is here. He can correct me if this number has updated at all, but Lisa checked, and currently, yesterday, we had collected $4,438,000,000. Mike is nodding his head. So we are already ahead of last year. We've conservatively estimated we will collect $5 million in OP tax this year. So certainly last year was pandemic. We did better than we anticipated. But I think this year we are in terms, it's another slide through, but I'll show you the Smith trend and the hotel metrics as compared to 2019 and 2020. And that will translate into this OP tax collections. Next one is sales tax. Tourism certainly contributes to sales tax. So I just grabbed some of Mike's numbers and dropped them in here so you can see how the sales tax has increased year over year. Note that 2021 is only through August of this year. So that 29 million is certainly not a complete year. Smith Trend Hotel Analytics. I talk about this often at our committee meetings. So the numbers that you have in front of you here are through the month of August. That supply, so supply, demand, occupancy, average daily rate, some of the key numbers that we look at. The supply number, 1,300,000 rooms may not mean a lot, but think about it on a daily basis, there are approximately 7,000 rooms available. That would be in the month of August. In the month of February, approximately 4,000 rooms available. Those rooms available are the participating properties. You do have to subscribe to Smith Trend in order to get these hotel analytics, but 7,000 of our rooms out of a little over 9,000 is the bulk of our properties that do subscribe to this platform. So it's a very good indicator of what's going on countywide. The year-to-date demand of 711,000 rooms is slightly below 2019. But the revenue number, please note, at 128 million is 10% above 2019. The reason for that is the average daily rate, which is up almost $20 over 2019. So the ADR is up and people are willing to pay that. And they're coming here at just about 2019 visitation levels. And 2019 was the highest year of demand since 2008. So again, the same as with sales tax, the Smith Trend almost mirrors that in terms of growth each year. The next metric that we use for measurement is short-term rentals. Supply of 219,000 rooms year to date, that's just a big number. But when you think of the supply per day in the month of August, my report tells me it's 1,300 units available in the month of August. In February, it's about 750 units available. Most of those are entire homes. So think about a family who's traveling or a group of friends, young adults, and they might get a room with 3 or 4 bedrooms, and it could be several traveling parties. If you were to go to a hotel, would you rent 2 or 3 hotel rooms? If you go to a short-term rental, maybe you're just renting one large home. And that, if you take a look at that average daily rate of $392, is considerably higher than the hotel average daily rate because people are renting an entire home. The interesting revenue number there, $45 million, and that is only year to date. And once the Treasurer's Department starts identifying all of those addresses for short-term rentals through that agreement with Granicus, we will have additional short-term rentals that will be registered, that will be paying that 4% OC tax, and that revenue amount can only increase. And that will translate into additional occupancy tax collections for the county. A new platform that we just started subscribing to this year, the mobile tracking data. I've only given you a couple of slides here to show you some high-level tracking. This could be a presentation in and of itself. This happens to be 2019 to date, so you can see how the summer months, the little blips in visitation. This technology tracks the phone that you're taking with you. It knows where you live. It knows when you've left your home, where you travel to, whether it's here in the county or a specific point of interest. Maybe you've been to Bolton Landing, maybe you've been to Gore Mountain, maybe you've been to the Great Escape. I've been able to choose approximately 20 points of interest, and I can break down the data for each of those different points of interest to see where people are coming from, what is the demographic, and compare one to another. So on my next slide, you'll see that, thank you, Tammy, I happen to choose Gore Mountain and Bolton Landing. So this is just by the DMA, the marketing area that the phone or the person lives in. So Gore Mountain, primarily their visitors are coming from the Capital District area, Albany, Schenectady, Troy, 58%. As compared to Bolton Landing, 57% are coming from Metro New York and New Jersey. So a very different demographic in each of those communities within the county. So I can do this at the county level, and then I can break it down into 20 different points of interest. This is a program that we subscribe to through our New York State Tourism Association, NYSTIA. As a result of that, I'm able to see other destinations around the state. So I took a look at Essex County, our competitors just a little bit to the north, and their #1 DMA was Burlington, Vermont. So what does that say to me? Burlington, Vermont, you've been there, you know the vibe. Maybe it's young adults, it's outdoorsy. Those people are traveling over to Essex County and Lake Placid. We have much the same to offer in outdoor recreation. So maybe I need to put a few dollars into that Burlington market. So things like that, there are just so many ways I can drill down into this data. This is just one of the ways, but for the little that we pay for it, it's an incredible amount of information.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
quick question, if you don't mind, for Joanne.
Sure.
Joanne, I'm just curious, on this slide, is there anything that's surprising to you?
Some of it confirms what I know, but some as in the Burlington as a destination is surprising to me. And I may not know that because I'm not the TPA up in Essex County. Some of the other, I need to take the time to go through each of the POIs to make that comparison. So at a glance, just to look at, I think I would know to myself that Bolton Landing is not the same demographic as Gore Mountain, but to specifically see where the people are coming from, I think that's just the tip of the iceberg there. And yes.
I guess just to follow up, I was surprised to see Philadelphia.
Correct.
Because all the information that I've seen over the past couple of years, Philadelphia really hasn't popped in terms of one of our key places to look. And it seems like a pretty big number from some place that we haven't seen before. But okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that could be an entire presentation. Okay, and I think the last one on my key performance indicators is the Tourism Economics Report, which we do receive every year from New York State. Warren County traveler spending, so this is 2019 dollars, $654 million. Thinking about, I receive a report for the entire Adirondacks, and Warren County traveler spending makes up 42% of that piece of pie. So a considerable amount of travel and spending within the Adirondacks takes place in Warren County. Over 9,000 tourism-related jobs, $3,000 per household saved every year. due to the tax savings to individual households. I would hope to have the 2020 report any day now. We do usually receive it in July or August. So stay tuned on that. Certainly the pandemic year will reflect a little bit differently, but we did have a fairly good year in 2020. So I will certainly share that as soon as I have that information. So that is a very high-level overview of what goes on in the tourism department. I would welcome any supervisors to stop in any time if they have specific questions or want to learn more. Part 2 of how that occupancy tax is spent is the 002 side of the budget. And if you're on my tourism committee, you may have seen this slide at the tourism committee meeting. So a quick glance at that. Up on the first little segment, Kristen will tiptoe into this a little bit, but money that goes to the towns is the first line item. Administration to the treasurer's office. This is 3% of the previous year's collections, so that number is down slightly now because collections were slightly down in 2020. Special event funding. So the Americades and the Balloon Fests and any of the events that submit an application to the committee for review. That's the line item for $600,000 in 2021. Convention event development is the Cool Arena, and we've had that agreement with Cool Arena for a number of years at $250,000. Black Dog, we help support the website and social media for Festival Commons. The Lake George Regional CVB and the Visitor Center is the next line item at $575,000. Some money for environmental projects for a couple of towns, Chester, Horicon, and Luzerne, and $100,000 to cover capital costs. We had a 5-year agreement with the Cool Arena for that. That will continue for another couple of years. I think it's into 2024. So if you look back at slide 3, part 1 of the budget was tourism, and part 2 of the budget is that $3,227,000. And before I hand off to Kristen, the last slide, we'll just take a look at that .469 code, and that's the money that does go back to municipalities. Lisa is just processing the first 2021 distribution, so that will be $30,000 to each of the towns. They typically receive that every year on or before October 15th, so you should receive that as it goes through the next audit cycle. And then after the books are closed in March, Mike, the Treasurer's Department finishes up collections for 2021, and everything is closed by June 1st. Mike will take the balance of collections, and that final distribution is based on how much is collected in each municipality. So the true up, if you will, for 2021 will occur in June of every year. The last little pocket of money that doesn't happen to be on that, in the past, we've referred to it as the spending plan. There is money in the 2022 budget. We're now calling it supplemental municipal funding, but there is a pot of money that is available to municipalities. There's an application process to go through. This past year, the town of Johnsburg and the town of Horicon did request funding. So there's money available if you do need, if the individual towns feel that they have a project that they do want to fund. So I am going to let Kristen explain a couple of those things, the special event funding and the municipal funding. And again, I invite you to stop in the office if you have any questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That was a good overview, and one I know that we all benefit from learning more about. And you're right on time. You're 2 minutes early. That's impressive. So Kristen, we look forward to hearing more now about these dual application process.
Thank you. If we could put the slides up, please. Thank you. thank everybody for your time today, by the way, and for coming and taking your time on a late afternoon to spend time with us in the tourism department. So we're going to switch gears a little bit here, and we're going to dig in a little bit into strategic tourism development and investment. And we're going to talk a little bit more about OCTAX and even talk a little bit about clowns, but we'll get more to the clowns later on. And yes, I did just say clowns. Trying to keep our attention, so follow with me. Strategic tourism development and investment is about critically looking at how our funding is being used, and making sure that all those pieces align and they row in the same direction, programmatically to create those transformative changes within the destination. So in essence, what we want to support and decide now is what really will guide us for our path into the region's future of tourism. Next slide, please. So we've talked a lot about the word strategy and investments over the last couple of months. And what I want you to do is think about OCTAX as a form of investment that really is looking into the future opportunities for regional tourism growth. So just like you would invest your money in like a mutual fund or a stock, I'd like to have you sort of think of this as, you know, what are you getting for your investment of your money? So we want to look at questions like, you know, what do we invest and why? You know, what's your return on your investment? Is what we're going to be funding transformative? Does it move the needle? Does it really shift things like bringing more visitors in those off-peak months, or does it add additional value by reaching niche markets of visitors? Is it good for your community? So, and does it provide additional benefits to the residents as well as the visitors that are coming? Things like trail improvements to make for more vibrant communities, or, you know, establishing more trails so that that business that is a bike business could be there. So my goal for you today is really to walk away from the workshop with a clear understanding of how we've been using OCTAX, the new processes, the procedures, and the evaluations that we're putting into place, and the expectations for how collaboratively we're going to have these new processes work together to create a stronger tourism strategy. Next slide. So let's first talk about the municipal tourism funding request applications. Joanne mentioned earlier, this is a new process that we're looking to do. There is $195,000 that has been put into that fund and budgeted for 2022. And it will be on a rolling basis. So it is an open-ended process. And on the tables here, some of you have got and have seen these before, the application processes. So there's the application as well as the evaluation criteria. But basically, this is for anything above and beyond the annual 25% distribution that Joanne was just mentioning previously. And what this is really to be used for projects, capital infrastructure improvements, tourism activities, and special events directly related to tourism growth. They can also be used to enhance environment, improve infrastructures relating to tourism, such as trails, sports fields, parks, recreation areas, or developing and maintaining vital tourism attractions and interpretive assets. Next. So the application process is actually pretty simple. It's not quite as complicated or as lengthy as the special events one. The application is much shorter. You obtain the application, which there's some down there. They're also up on our website. You review the guidelines and tourism expenditure list to ensure that your project falls within those parameters, or certainly you're welcome to call our offices and we can talk to you further about, you know, how that funding might be needed or used, and sort of help you through that process. We realize it's a very new and different approach, but certainly with a process and procedure behind it. Fill out the application completely and then think about some of these questions that you might want to provide some clear answers to. You know, does it support a unique tourism opportunity, an event, or an activity or program that's going to really increase your community's vibrancy or visitations? Does it enhance existing tourism assets and local environment? You know, does it improve local tourism related infrastructures, or help maintain the vital local tourism attractions and assets? So does this help really your communities, you know, become more vibrant, stay more vibrant, enhance it, not just for the visitors that are coming in, but also for the residents? You know, having a great community and having it be inviting for all really will help enhance that tourism overall. So it's you know, all ships rise to the top. If you put in some investment, we'll see the outcomes in the end. So these are some of the questions that you kind of want to be asking yourself when you're looking to put in one of those applications. Next slide, please. So additionally, the second part of the application is really to provide a total budget for the activity or the project or the event that you're looking to support. Indicate, if that funding request is going to be merged with any other funding mechanisms. So for example, are you trying to have this merge perhaps with a grant, and we can certainly talk to planning about that if that's even a possibility. But, are there other sources that you're looking to perhaps commingle that would enhance whatever you're trying to do and support within your community? And if the funding request is in support of an existing countywide or municipal recreation plan, indicate that as well. I mean, I've looked through a lot of our master plans that are out there, recreation plans. I mean, there's a lot of great work that's been done already. And if it's something to enhance that, we want to be able to help support that because it all fits in and funnels moving forward. So, and this is all very important. So now we come to the fun part of the process. Once you've put the application in, it's going to come to committee and it's going to be evaluated. So this part really, it's about truly critically vetting the funding requests. So now you're sitting on the flip side and you're looking at these requests coming in and you want to be able to understand what is, not just what the process is, but also where the benefits are. How is it going to benefit that community? How is it going to benefit us all as a whole, as a region? So you want to ask some of these questions. Does it create a sustainable mechanism for future tourism growth in the area? Or is it going to be a one-trick pony that just comes in and it's funded and then it's over? Really, we want to try and push things that are more sustainable, that are going to be enhancing overall over time, because we're looking futuristically and opportunistically. So also, you want to be visionary in that respect. Secondly, does it make the community more vibrant? Again, just talking about what we were saying before. Does the investment provide an opportunity for entrepreneurial business growth and fill needs? So example being, enhancing trails will then create a more vibrant reason for people to come and ride their bikes or take hikes and walk. So these are all things that, we want to do because perhaps a business will come in and they will be a bike rental business, so they all tie in. It's all a domino effect that ties together overall. And does it align and support the larger countywide, regional, existing master plans or recreation plans? Again, going back to what we were just talking about earlier, if there are things that are already in existence in your community, in your town, your municipality, does this tie in? And, how can we help enhance that and make it better and grow tourism across the region? So we've reviewed a lot of information at this point. I don't really want to jump quite yet, but I wanted to stop for a quick second and see if anybody has any specific questions on the municipal application process or the evaluation side as a whole. No. Okay, well then we'll dig in. We'll jump right into special events. And certainly, there's been a lot of changes to this. First being that there's a new schedule that we've tried to put forward. And the reason being for that is that it's really to get a process internally for us to allow the organizers on the outside to be able to apply and to know what their deadlines are, and then internally to not have meeting over meeting over meeting, but rather to funnel the process so that all those applications come in at the same time. There's a review time for them, there's presentations, and then the decisions get made. So I'm a big process and procedure kind of gal. So to be able to have this on a schedule not only helps us internally and from a committee standpoint, but it's also a benefit from a 6-month standpoint for the event organizers, because they know roughly ahead of time what their budgets are going to look like and what additional funding they're going to need. So for the annual and the seasonals, we're asking for this particular, and again, this is all started sort of midstream. So again, there's a little bit of flexibility for those that are coming in for the winter, but just looking into the next year, into 22, the new ones for next year are due by October 27th. We're looking to have committee review November 1st through the 24th. So that will be your chance to be able to look at these and vet them and really look at them critically and evaluate them. Then we'll have the applicants come in and present, which would be great to hear from their own voices. If it's an annual event, how did they do this year? Was it successful? What worked, what didn't? I think it's important to get that feedback. So as you're making your evaluation, you can understand better that the value of that event to our area, to our region, and find out if they're really doing well, if it's bringing some benefits to our community, or, maybe they need some additional help. We'll see. Secondly, the second round, which is the off-peak ones, are due on December 3rd, a little bit close to each other. There is some flexibility with regards to the winter ones for off-peak, as right now the tentative application process for review will be probably January through February, with presentations the 7th through the 11th, and then final decisions probably made in early March. So again, there is the little dots there saying there is some flexibility on the second off-peak, so we're giving a little bit of leeway time here and there. Somebody had also asked at one point, is there a rolling application process? Certainly we would never discount somebody who came to us and said, I have an amazing idea. I have a really cool event and I got to bring it. And, so of course that would be taken into consideration with the budget also being looked at. So we would never necessarily turn someone away. But the point is that we don't want to have this be on a continuous rolling basis. We're only doing 2 or 3 at a time. Let's funnel it through. Let's make a process and really have it sort of stick to these dates so that it's, for lack of a word, not death by meeting. So next slide, please. So the evaluation process. Now here, this really, for years, we've talked about heads and beds, how many people, heads and beds. And I'm going to ask you to consider what the value is of that event to Warren County. It's in my mind, in looking at this, I'm looking also at it from a business perspective. And I would ask you to do the same and say, it's also like a sponsorship. You look at the value of the room nights, VIK, which is value in kind, economic impact, and community benefit. So considering all those things tied together as you're making your decision-making process is something that is all tied into the evaluation, the questions, and the specific criteria, which we'll go into in just a second. Next slide. So value in kind, VIK, this is the good stuff. It's the additional opportunities, or it's the partner benefits that we can get by collaboratively working with events and event organizers by supporting these events. And for example, can we tie into the event's public relations outreach? Can we tie into their press and their media, like we're going to do next week, ice castles? These are some of the examples, to be able to reach niche markets that we might not have advertising dollars put behind. So for example, Jeep owners, sports teams, barbecue lovers, in destinations that, for example, they're bringing people in from Georgia, Maryland, Texas, but they may not be traditional markets that the Warren County Tourism Department is spending advertising dollars in. So the value in kind here, the VIK, would be if we are supporting that event for $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, the value in kind becomes they're reaching out to their attendees in these other markets that are Texas, Georgia, Maryland. And those people are coming specifically for that event because they are fans of Jeeps, or they are barbecue lovers, or car aficionados, whatever they are. And it's giving them a reason to come to our destination. So we're not spending advertising dollars, but rather we're leveraging that event to reach those folks in those destinations and having them come and spend their money and increase our OCTAX. So the value in kind is actually really important in terms of understanding how we create value in supporting our events. Other examples are things like customized signage at the events itself that has Warren County Tourism's logo, so a lot of people can see it, connections to the website, social media connections, marketing, advertising, tie-ins. So there's a lot of options that we can use to leverage. And again, it's thinking of this as a sponsorship, in times of, and a type of support, because we're really putting money behind something, and it's creating that symbiotic relationship between both us as the county, and the event organizer. So both win. They get the visibility, we get the visibility, we get the people, we get the money. There's a lot of cross-pollination that can really work well. So next slide. Evaluation criteria. So now that we already started questioning the value of the events in the county, let's talk a little bit more about the economic impact. What's the value of each dollar spent? And so in your evaluation criteria packets that go along with the application, and there's some down here, if you haven't seen them before, you're welcome to grab them. But we want to look at what is the size of that event? Is it a large event, medium, small? Is it peak season, middle of summer, or is it going to be off peak? You know, in the winter, ones are going to be more valuable. You know, does it positively impact the local business? You know, or are the residents, you know, are they excited about that event coming, or do they get irritated and they dread it because it causes things like traffic issues or loud disruptions? You know, so again, looking at, is it good? Is it a benefit to the community? Is the community happy to have them coming back year over year, or are they kind of like, you know, it's not that great? You know, is there anything else that can be garnered, you know, from a benefit? Is it, do they give free clinics for if there's sports tournament? You know, is there high level folks that are coming in, they can give free clinics to the local kids? You know, is there a free concert? Is there a parade? I mean, whatever that could be a benefit that comes back to that community, is that falling into the mix of this entire economic impact? And is the funding request equitable? Does it make sense? Is somebody coming in right off the bat and asking you for an enormous sum of money, but they're only going to deliver, you know, 300 room nights and not a lot of visibility? So again, it's looking at things like that to go, maybe it really doesn't make sense that we really want to fund at that level. Maybe we fund them at some level, but just not at that level. So next slide. Soundness and fiscal stability. So does it have the funds to make it work? So again, looking at the evaluation criteria and this application, you know, does that event have enough seed money to cover its expenses? You know, what do they start off as their working capital? And if it's zero, if they're coming in and they're saying, we have no money and we want you to fund everything, walk away, because it's not, it just won't work. You know, how reliant is the event on public dollars? Or are they co-oping and working with the business community? You know, are they going after sponsorships? You know, so looking at those other revenue sources of how their funding will ultimately identify the fiscal stability of that event. If it's an annual event, do they try to improve year over year? Are they trying to attract new people, new visitors? Are they improving their marketing? Are they adding new things, you know, so that they're really becoming entrenched as an annual event and they're going to come back year over year? And do they collaborate with the businesses to package, to create incentives, to grow tourism? You know, if it's an event that's coming in and they say, hey, listen, I'm going to package with, you know, 4 of the different hotels and offer special deals and discounts, you know, that's a benefit. You know, people love a good deal. They love things for free, but they really love a good deal. So those are also things to consider when you're looking at that particular thing, soundness and fiscal stability. Next slide. I did promise clowns. Does it maximize the reach beyond Warren County? We talked a little bit about this earlier. You know, does it provide value in kind marketing opportunities like social media, tags, website connections, PR opportunities? Does it tie to new demographics, being a unique event? You know, like sports teams, Jeep owners, professional clowns. I promised you the clown story. So, but seriously, think about this for a minute. So a unique event could be a clown convention that comes in every year and brings 5,000 professional clowns from all over the United States. They stay 4 days, Thursday through Sunday. They offer a free parade for the community that Friday. And then the clown demonstration on Sunday that's also open to the public. Anybody can come. So that's your value in kind and your partner benefit, because that benefit comes back to the community. It's offering something new, something exciting. It's for the residents as well as for the visitors. So somebody sees this on our website and they go, that's cool. I live in, you know, Vermont. I hadn't planned on coming for the weekend, but there's a clown convention and I really love clowns, and my kids, God, they love clowns. I'm going to come. So they decide to come. So again, another value added bonus. And then this group decides they're going to book out the largest space for their annual dinner and their awards, and they're going to spend money on food and beverage. And they go enjoy the local attractions because half of them haven't been here. And then they leave with an economic impact of several $1 million behind. So the question I would say to you, is it a good event? Does it sound like a decent event? Does it sound like something that we could support and get behind? And it's clowns. Trying to throw some levity. But really, it's about looking at niche markets, new visitors, and opportunities, and being visionary. You know, looking beyond what we have and finding those opportunities that are out there. So jumping to the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about special event evaluation. So I'm going to use the example of Primetime Lacrosse. Now, Primetime Lacrosse has been coming to our area a little over 4 years. They've seen 30% growth year over year. They had 158 registered teams this year from 16 different states. They had 8,380 visitors with over 85% capacity in our local hotels. They generated 6,164 room nights at 22 different hotels. So they had requested $40,000 for 2021 and received it. Therefore, they generated almost $100 for every $1 of occupancy tax that we invested in them. So from value in kind look, you know, the overall economic impact was roughly $3 million in one weekend. The VIK, the value in kind, they were promoting their event in places like Florida, Illinois, Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, Vermont, and Virginia. Now, a lot of those places, I'm assuming, Joanne, please correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't necessarily spend large advertising dollars in those states telling people to come to Lake George. But those teams and those athletes and their families came, and they've been coming year over year, and that's expanding that reach. So supporting this event contributes a lot of out-of-state dollars to OCC tax, to sales tax, to bringing new visitors and new demographics from as far away as Texas. They usually also bring in teams from Canada, but due to COVID, they couldn't bring them this year. So these are some of the things, and an example, and I scored 100 over 100, actually rescoring them, it's a little bit lower in running through the full evaluation. But this is a very valuable piece of business for us to keep and to support, because they keep growing and they're going to keep bringing new business. And as specifically in sports, they don't go away. They just keep coming back. Unless they can't find any more fields, they're going to just keep coming back. So
Real quick, where are they playing at? What fields are they at?
they were playing at Ridge Jenkinsville. They were playing in Moreau. They were playing, I think, in Lake George. They were playing a bunch of fields over at Golden Goal, which is over in Washington County. So they were kind of scattered, and they would have easily and happily taken up a lot of the fields from the schools, but due to COVID, they weren't able to. The year prior, they had taken almost all the school fields, so across the county.
They go to the dome?
Doug couldn't have them at the Dome because it's a boys lacrosse tournament, and they rip up the fields, his fields, and he needs them for softball. So, so that's my overview. Next slide, please. And so I've left time for questions. There's about 5-7 more minutes left. If anybody has any specific questions or anything, I'm always available for a phone call, an email, a Zoom call, come to the office. You know, Joanne and I are both downstairs. We're happy to walk you through any of these processes, any questions you have, you know, any more specific details. If you want to sit one-on-one, I am more than happy to walk you through any of the presentation or any of the questions you might have.
Do we have any questions for Kristen? Supervisor Leggett?
Thank you, Chairwoman, and thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Joanne, for putting together these presentations. It takes a lot of time, and it provides a lot of information in a very easy way to digest it. And coming off of the strategic planning event that was the other day for Tourism 365, you can see how all this plays together. Thank you for tightening up the whole process. I think it's a lot more user-friendly. If you're an event planner, somebody coming through, have this all lined out now. It's not as much of a throw of the dice for things. So, looks good. Appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Straub?
Yeah, I just want to say, you know, knowing Joanne for years, knowing Kristen for years, and I had another meeting, but I knew this presentation was going to be tonight or this afternoon. So I wanted to be here, and I was not disappointed. I mean, it's fantastic, but I think that our tourism department, our tourism team, their thoroughness, their institutional knowledge, their dedication, I think it all comes through in everything you do. So I want to thank Joanne and Kristen and your team. And I think you guys do a stupendous job, and I think it deserves me bringing that out. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Chairwoman, I have one other thing if I could add, please.
Sure.
Just in relation to a couple of opportunities, we just talked about value in kind and VIK, and I know that a lot of you would have received the email that I sent out about a week or so ago, week and a half ago, about Special Olympics. And there is some opportunity here as a supporter of this event for our leadership team here. A couple things I'd mentioned in the email. One is the High Five Club, which is an opportunity to give medals at the opening ceremonies on October 23rd with all other law enforcement. On October 7th, there's a unified bocce opportunity at the Queensbury Hotel. It's also a fundraiser for them and a reception. You are all welcome to attend. And then they're looking for volunteers of any capacity as well. And then formal invitations will be sent out directly from Special Olympics to all of you to attend the opening ceremonies as well. So just for your information to share that as well. But again, this shows that symbiotic relationship, really, if you start that from the very get-go with these event rights holders, everybody gets, this is a great way for us to be engaged in the events and really see what they do and the value of that, and certainly value for the community. I mean, they're so grateful for the support of this committee. So thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. And as the board knows, we passed a proclamation last month for Special Olympics, and we'll be presenting it on opening night. So I hope as many supervisors as possible can attend that. And it was a good example of how the application process worked fresh off the presses and through the board approval process for them to be our first applicant. So that was a great test run. I also want to thank all of our committee members on tourism and our tourism chair, Supervisor Garrity. All of you spend a lot of time in committee meetings with tourism and OCTAX, and you also spend a lot of time scoring all of these events. And as you see from the calendar, committee members will be busy doing that here in the near future on this twice a year process with the calendar, accepting those applications. So it's a lot of work to sit on that committee, and I'm sure Supervisor Garrity will tell you it's a lot of work to chair it. And we've just done a phenomenal job this year. And Kristen and Joanne, you guys have just led the charge with that. So thank you for working so hard. Are there any other questions or comments on tourism related matters?
Just really quick,
course.
I'd just like to say it certainly is a team effort down there. I mean, if you go through, each one of them have their own niche, but they work very well together, and I'm pleased the packets they put together tonight, you couldn't ask for anything better. Self-explanatory. They've touched on a lot of areas. I know there was concerns about the applications. I think they've been addressed tonight. And I just want to thank them again because, it's been a rough year, with the pandemic and events not doing well. Well, it's picked up. And I know in my community this weekend, it's going to be busy. It's already getting busy up there. So I want to thank you all for that. And Mike, for finally getting the Occupancy Tax stuff lined up. I think that's going to take a lot of burden off of our tourism department in the future. So thank you. Thank you.
Well, we just signed the Granicus contract, so that just got done. So thank you again, Treasurer Swan. You're doing a great job making sure that we're on track with that. We're moving now into all things septic. So we are excited to have
Great job.
Supervisor Bramer leading the discussion on the proposal. And before we get started, I want to take the opportunity to thank the members that stepped up to the plate to work so hard on this. And for all of you that have been working on this for the past 3 years. This did not start this year, but I am very grateful for the support from the board to create this committee. And for those of you that have put, I know, an awful lot of time in all different times throughout your day in meetings lately on this topic. So that being said, this is a workshop. The rules are informal. Supervisor Bramer, if you want to, take Q&A as you go, whatever you'd like to do, the floor is yours as you present this with your committee.
Thank you so much. I'll reiterate, thanks to everybody on the committee for all of your time. And we did have various meetings over the last several weeks at different times of the day to try to accommodate people's schedules and get as much of the public input as we could. I will give a shout out to Horicon because we had an offsite meeting there. I think it was last week in the afternoon, and they had a great batch of people come from the public and give really great feedback, and that was very helpful. So I'm very appreciative of Supervisor Smith for being able to provide the site and also all of the expertise through her local people. And I'll circle back to that in a second, because really this whole thing kind of comes out of Brant Lake from the very beginning, but I'll go through that in just a minute. There is a presentation that I would hope we can put up on the screen to go through. So my plan, Chairwoman, is to go through the presentation, which includes going through the law, and then we could take questions at the end, unless somebody has a burning question right at the time, which would be fine with me too if anybody wants to jump in. But that's my outline for the activities of covering this. So I do want to say at the outset, just as a reminder, I see that Supervisor Stroud left already, but this did, Queensberry and Bolton have already led the way in this effort. And a lot of this background work comes out of their two municipalities, so we didn't have to completely reinvent the wheel. But again, thank you to the committee. Thank you to everybody for providing input. If you couldn't help me, is it Tammy driving? Amanda, go ahead and swap over to the next slide, please. We did have a great group. It was myself, Supervisor McGowan, Supervisor Frazier, Supervisor Bruno, Supervisor Leggett, Supervisor Smith, and Supervisor Thomas. And I put in there, our objective was twofold, both to protect natural resources and to protect human health, because as we know, we have many wonderful lakes around this entire county, which provide a great resource and asset to the county from an economic standpoint, as well as, a lot of these water bodies are providing drinking water for our residents and for our visitors. So we want to make sure that we're protecting both natural resources and our human health. You can go to the next slide. At the very beginning, so I'm going to give you some background that really isn't on the slide, but if you go all the way back to January of 2019, we had a committee meeting, environmental committee meeting, where our former supervisor, Mr. Matt Simpson, provided a representative, or actually introduced a representative from the Adirondack Lakes Alliance, which is kind of based out of the Brant Lake area. It was Mr. Ed Grismer, and he was there also with Jane Smith. And they were really the first ones to provide us this suggestion, provide the idea to us as a county that we should go forward. These are minutes from that meeting. Mr. Grismer mentioned the town of Queensberry septic law and suggested the county also look into creating a similar law. And that is the impetus really for us moving forward from there. At the March 18th, 2019 meeting, we were given an update on this New York State septic system replacement program. That's kind of going to be a theme, a little bit of a theme throughout this presentation, is that we did this septic inspection law kind of in tandem with the New York State septic replacement funding opportunity. And that continued in the spring of 2019. At one point, we had a presentation from Tammy DiLorenzo, as well as Beth Gillis, who was executive director of the Lake Champlain Lake George Regional Planning Board. And they were recommending to us that we move forward with seeking funding from the state, and we did end up doing that. At the May 2019 meeting, there was a county planning group meeting. That's kind of run by the county planning department and other interested stakeholders throughout the county. And at that point, there was a presentation from Dave Hatton, town of Queensberry, about Queensberry's implementation of the septic inspection law. And it was, at that time, it was going very well. They were receiving numerous requests for inspections, keeping in mind that town of Queensberry conducts their own inspections. And they were finding many failures, mostly minor issues that could be corrected without a whole-scale replacement of the system. And there was discussion at that meeting about whether or not the county should use third-party inspectors, as Bolton was doing, or go forward with its own inspectors like Queensberry was doing. You'll see when we get to the actual law that the proposal is to use outside inspectors the way that Bolton does. In In October of 2019, that's what this slide is talking about. There was a presentation to the Environmental Concerns Committee from the Realtors Association. They had gone out and done a survey of people on a few various issues, one of which was short-term rentals. And another one was about the septic inspection. I know you guys can't see it there, but some of their survey results found that 8 in 10 residents support requiring a septic system inspection upon the sale of a home or property so that any problems found can be fixed at that time. Most of those 6 in 10 overall strongly support the proposal. Even among those who own septic systems, 78% are in support, 55% strongly in support. Reducing pollution in local lakes and rivers, strongest reason to support inspection requirement. Nearly 2/3 of residents said that they are much more likely to support the proposal, 84% more likely overall when they hear the goal of the law is to make sure broken septic systems are repaired in order to reduce pollution leaking into local lakes and rivers. And I think that's really what the committee tried to focus on here, was making sure that we find broken systems and get them fixed so that we're protecting our water bodies. Amanda, I think you can flip to the next one. Oh, that was just a reminder about, we did pass a resolution, and Supervisor Conover at the time, chair at the time, did submit that letter to New York State seeking the septic grant funding. Later, you can flip to the next one, Amanda, thanks. Later in 2019, we also had a presentation from the county. Oh, before I do that, I do want to mention that in the fall of 2019, I attended the Southern Adirondack Realtors Association Forum, and they, of course, discuss all kinds of issues, but this issue about the county coming forward with a septic inspection at transfer law was also discussed, and there was lots of positive feedback there, that people were open to the county doing it because it would provide some more consistency for the realtors about what they should be requiring of, or helping their clients with as they go through transfers. And then this slide is about the presentation that we got at the Environmental Concerns Committee in November of 2019. Mr. Belden, who was in the county planning department at that time, did a really great presentation to the county about septic problems and the ways that we could move forward with the septic inspection law. This is just one of the slides from his presentation. I'm sure we can go back and pull that up if we need to. In the winter of 2019 into 2020, there were a few meetings that I had with stakeholders trying to move forward and figuring out how we could do this and what would the best way. Some of those were people in the county like Chris Belden, and some people were outside the county like realtors, local realtors, as well as Chris Nowitzki, an engineer and the water keeper. And going back to Ed Grismer, I met with him to talk about the county's proposal. And throughout the summer and fall of 2020, we had discussions both in and out of committee. There were some good discussions in August and September of 2020. Those are the main ones that I can remember. Then I will say in the winter of 2020 and into the early 2021, this year, getting all the way back to this year, we had limited discussion in committee. But I'm sure, as everyone remembers, that will bring us pretty much up to June of 2021, where the Board of Supervisors did authorize a special committee and directed us as a special committee to establish a proposal that we would bring through to the September workshop, which is where we are now. Let me just see if there's anything else. Amanda, if you can hop to the next one. Oh, that's right. In 2020, I want to remind you guys that we did also pass a resolution supporting clean lakes throughout the county. It was a collaboration with other counties to work on clean lakes issues. So it's just a demonstration of how the county has been behind protecting our water bodies, especially Lake George, but others around the county as well. And then on the next slide, Amanda, this is just a quick reminder about the Lake George Park Commission. These are a couple of slides that I pulled from their presentation a few weeks ago, actually. They are working vigorously, I will say, on a proposal for the Lake George Basin itself. And in here, I thought it was really interesting. They did some research and came up with a survey of other watersheds in the state that have any kind of septic inspection law. And you'll see in that second slide there, it talks about most of them are requiring an inspection at transfer. Some of them do require periodic inspections, say every X number of years, 5 years, 7 years, whatever you have it there. When we get to our proposal, you'll see that we are not requiring the periodic inspections. It will simply be a straight at transfer inspection. Okay, so I wanted to go through all that background so that you guys would be brought up to speed from where we were starting all the way back in January of 2019. And now, if you will, Amanda, help me, you can bump through 2 slides there into the actual proposal itself. If there aren't any questions before I do that. Okay. Amanda, go back one, sorry, go back to the slide that says applicability. Okay. So the applicability, like I mentioned before, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. So this proposal really comes from the text of it, mostly comes from the town of Bolton. And you'll see that there is an intent and findings at the very beginning that talk about protecting natural resources and human health. Pretty basic stuff that I think most people can get behind. The area where there was a lot of discussion is about the applicability of this law. And where we are now, the proposal requires an inspection at the transfer of any property that is within 250 feet of the specified water bodies. So there's a specific list of water bodies at the end of the proposal. And the reason that it's in the end of the proposal as an appendix is for future consideration. If we ever wanted to add more water bodies to that, we could do it pretty easily by just amending the appendix without having to do a lot of digging into the text of the law. So you'll see, I'll list them off: Lake George, Scroon River, Brant Lake, Loon Lake, Lake Luzerne, Hudson River, and Friends Lake. This one, these are my photos. The one on the left is actually a trick because that is taken from the town of Putnam of Lake George.
Oh.
So obviously we will not be covering Washington County properties, but only Warren County properties on Lake George side. Yes.
Of course, it's informal. Claudia's
Okay,
got the floor.
I noticed Glen Lake wasn't on there, and they do have public access and so forth.
So part of the applicability section talks about if any town has a law for inspection at transfer, they will be exempt from the county law. And that is specifically Queensberry and Bolton. And I'm pretty sure in Queensberry, their law covers everything in their waterfront property zoning district. And I'm pretty sure Glen Lake is in that district, Doug.
Okay. It is.
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I do have a question. And what triggered my question was the discussion around the watershed properties that you mentioned. Now, Glens Falls has a quite large watershed property in the town of Queensbury. Now, does the Queensbury septic system laws apply to the Glens Falls watershed? That's our source of drinking water, along with the backup supply source to the town of Queensbury. So my question is, and maybe you can come back and give me an answer at a later
Sure.
date, if that particular parcel or watershed, there's several small, not ponds, but the small lakes up there.
Yeah.
To find out if that's reservoirs.
Do you know? Yeah, Mike.
No, I don't. I'm just leading on to what Supervisor Diamond said.
Question,
It's-
came to
it's-
mind when you talked about the watershed.
But
Yeah, if it's
just
too-
one moment, please. Can you just give Supervisor Bramer a moment to answer Supervisor Diamond's question and then to move on to your next
We
question?
don't have to answer
Supervisor Ross?
today, but if you could find out and answer for me to see if that applies.
Yeah, I have looked at that, Jack, and I can't remember off the top of my head if all of the, and their waterfront district is, it's a specific area, and I can't remember if it is probably part of the watershed property is, and some of it isn't.
Okay.
But I'll look.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Supervisor Wild.
Thank you, and I'll be brief. Supervisor Diamond mentioned the fact that it's a drinking source, but we don't include tributaries.
Correct.
And the tributaries lead into these reservoirs. And that's why it's very important to include every single water body in Warren County. Because of the fact that this water goes somewhere and it goes into our lakes. And it goes into the lakes that are listed in Appendix A, and it goes into the other lakes that aren't listed in Appendix A, as well as ponds. So I really hope that we can consider expanding this, because if it truly is for the health of our public, then we're missing a big portion of this.
Supervisor Wild, I do not disagree with you that it would be great to cover the whole entire county. This was a working group of 7 people and it's got to get through a board of 20. So part of what we did a lot of compromising in our committee meetings. And you're welcome to go back and look at them, but we did talk about that issue of tributaries and trying to strike a good balance where we think we can make a difference and not overwhelm people, at least starting out. I guess I'll say, do you want to say anything, Craig?
You said it very well. And this is striking a balance at this point in time. I was on a NISAC Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee meeting the other day. And nationwide, there is an effort to, let's say, regulate things like tributaries. And it's getting a lot of pushback from farmers and others because it's seeming to be a little too intrusive. And also, as we roll out this program, the idea is to hit these main water bodies that have a lot of pre-existing non-conforming size lots and older systems on them and tackle that first. That's the high priority area. Over time, and capacity grows, this program may also be able to expand.
I understand, and if I may,
Mhm.
Madam Chair, I think it's important that if we cannot include that, at least it's part of our public information package that we send out about it, that it is important to maintain your septic system. It's part of maintaining your house. And, right now we're focusing on the lakes, but everyone needs to be aware that these need to be checked and maintained. Otherwise, they will fail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
That brings up a good point. Let me just say one thing, which I didn't put in the presentation, is that Bolton put together a whole package of information that they have out on their website. And we can certainly, replicate that as a point of education and information for our public. And for the people going through this process, it provides a checklist, it provides the form, it has a lot of great information that I think we'll be able to adopt pretty easily. Yes. And Bolton's secretary, their planning secretary and their deputy clerk, Sue Wilson, she's been really great about with Supervisor Conover's, blessing, providing us some of those documents in Word version so we can just kind of plug those in for ourselves. Yes, Brad.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And really, this is just a phenomenal presentation. You have worked hard, and I'm so proud that I was, part of this. And you're doing a phenomenal job. But one of the many things we have discussed in our meetings was education and educating the people. So that is something that we will be putting together, in brochures and that to so people have an understanding of what the different systems are and how they operate and the recommendations of, how to maintain and what to look for. And especially having them pumped out annually is one of the main things to do. A lot of people coming in don't understand the difference between, sewer and septic. Sewer takes the water, takes the waste away, and a septic treats it right there on the property. And then you have your cesspools, and then you have your dry wells, and you have your gray water. So there's a lot of education, and that's one of the things that we did talk about, and we will be working on that.
Before we leave this slide about applicability, the other thing I want to mention is that the committee, the consensus of the committee was that we would leave in a provision allowing any municipal government who, by the effective date of this county law, which is 6 months from now, passes a local law, either a transfer law or a local law opting out, they would be allowed to do so.
Does that have to be a local law?
I believe it does. I'm sorry, it's a resolution. is what, how we have it written. Sorry. Yeah. So there is that, another piece of compromise, I would say, by the committee. Amanda, if you'll go to the next one.
So that means any town that feels as though this is too intrusive will say, we don't want to get involved in that. So if the town of Chester, not to use them as an example, Loon Lake and a few other lakes will not be affected by this.
Correct.
Uh,
I would say, one of the things I want to say is that we talked a lot in the committee about how this is not meant to supersede any of the local approvals that might be required. And it's not meant to take away from Board of Health. They'll still have to do all of their local Board of Health functions. But what it really does is provides a way for the county codes department. Of course, Charles Wallace is on the hook here to manage all of this. And it's not going, that part of the administrative process is not going to fall in towns. So I personally am hopeful that the towns won't opt out, that they'll see this as another way for the county to be supporting them in their ability to monitor code enforcement.
So as a
Shared services.
So as a compromise, how many towns do you think will opt out? Because people must have demanded this during the negotiations.
I am not totally sure, Mike, but I know that Lake George already you want to talk to that, Chairwoman?
No, I'm waiting my turn. Go ahead.
Okay,
finish.
the chairwoman and I did go up to Lake George Town Board meeting one night a few months ago when they were talking about this, and they took a straw poll basically, and their board was going to opt out. That's the only one I know of so far for sure that has indicated they will opt out.
Supervisor Bramer.
Yeah.
I think it's also important in context of this discussion that everything we do on this board is a compromise. We all come forward with different ideas, and we hope that we find a meeting in the middle somewhere to make our community better as a team representing 65,000 people. What I heard at your last committee meeting, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not hearing it discussed here in the context of Supervisor Wild's question. The only opportunity a board or a town, a municipality would have to opt out is if they had a similar process. If they had within that 6 months. No. So this is opt out
Simply
completely.
if they want to. They could be automatically exempted if they have a transfer law, like Queensberry, Bolton.
Oh, it's an automatic exemption if they have one.
Yep.
Okay. And I think too, once, hopefully this will have a lot of public comment. I know you've gone above and beyond with the wanting to reach out. You've had meetings at all times of the day, which I think is great. Once this is passed and hopefully passed, and this is on the books, it seems to me then you could always, if down the road, if there's the will of the community and will of the board, and it makes a lot of sense, look at Charlie's Wallace's department for assistance over there to help, and perhaps be enticing to some other communities to also work with the county, or to change this moving forward. But it at least is a foundation, I guess is my point. You're at a starting point.
Absolutely. And
So-
I do think, yeah. I do think that Charlie Wallace, he is a trooper and he will get it done. But I think that even without this law, he might need some assistance. And so that, I do think that's something we could look at in the future. One of the things that Ethan Gaddy said to me, as we've kind of been talking about this, and that's my next slide, is just some reporting back to the whole board as this gets underway to see how it's going.
Okay.
So. Yep.
Can you tell us about the committee's decision-making process to include water bodies 30 acres and larger? Like why?
Okay, right. That is basically because of the New York State septic funding program requirements. And maybe Tammy can remember about that. Do you want to speak to that, Tammy? I'm sorry, you're not at a mic. I mean, that was when we first started developing this, we were also in tandem working on trying to get funding from the state for all of these water bodies that met their criteria.
So potentially down the road, I know right now it's just Lake George,
Yep.
but potentially down the road, we could seek funding for property owners.
size of the water body, the number of parcels within the 250 feet of the water body. Those were criteria. They also had to be on the New York State list as being a water body that they saw issues with. That was another one which kind of defied logic, that Lake George wasn't initially included on that list. And that's kind of where we started our fight. And we used, Beth Gillis was instrumental in preparing that list as we met as a committee. I mean, and this is going back to 2019, but that's basically where that list initially stemmed from. And the guidance from the DEC to be able to limit I shouldn't say limit, but to knowing that there's a certain amount of funding, to make the best use of that funding that was going to be available.
And, you know, we could always, maybe part of ARPA, set up our own funding stream. I don't think that's impermissible under DEC to bolster that money. And I think, I don't know if Ethan is on here, but we've already far exceeded the first round of money that we have received through the state. We've gotten a lot of
$100,000, right?
Sorry?
It was 100,000 the state initially.
No, we got 340,000.
Before.
Right?
I have a follow-up question when you get a chance.
I think it was over 300,000 that we got from the state, and we got applications far more than that. And so I think the planning department is just saying to people, keep applying, and if we get more money, we'll put you back in the hopper.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm clear. So if Lake George opts out, do the homes affected in the Lake George village are then opted out of the requirement, whereas the homes in Queensbury that are on Lake George are in?
Yes.
Wow. So, well, across the street, then
Keep in mind, in the village, they're mostly on sewer.
That's right.
The
If
town's
I may.
too big.
Caldwell Sewer District,
So-
I understand, but
Yeah.
Right. If you take Lake George all the way up to the Bolton line along the lake and all the properties that are involved there, I think the reason that the town is thinking of not joining in on this and opting out is because they have their own plans coming along, like Queensbury has done. So they're in a process of doing something similar.
well, wouldn't it behoove them though to just go forward then with the county septic until they had something in place? I mean, and then they could use their local law, and they could obviously, like Queensbury and Bolton.
Right. Let's take Chester, for example. Chester was the first town in the county to have a septic inspection upon transfer before Queensbury and before Bolton. And it's has led the way in this. And also, you know, the Adirondack Lakes Alliance, Ed Gressmere is from Loon Lake as well. So there's always been a lot of interest in this. We find it hard to enforce because it is not uniform across the county. So if you have realtors from Glens Falls, Queensbury coming up selling property in the town of Chester, they don't know what the local law is. And this goes back to the Southern Adirondack Realtors Association and things that they mentioned. They would like to have some uniformity so that there is a general knowledge of what's required by their professionals as they are working with buyers and sellers. And this is why I'm coming forward with support of the town board to basically opt in and include us, because I see that it will provide a much more uniform septic inspection platform.
Yeah, I agree. More uniformity across the county. I totally agree with that.
Okay. I want to keep moving because we still have a few other sections that'll probably garner some discussion. But I do want to put up here, and this is, of course, from our wonderful planning department. Sarah Frankenfeld pulled this together. She's been working on this since way back in 2019, but she just updated it for us today. As of today, the properties that are within 250 feet in each of the towns, you can go through and see that. She has that file. If anyone wants to have it, I can send it to you, or you can ask Sarah for it. So that's that one. Okay, Amanda, you'll give me the next slide. Okay. This one, a little shout out to Lake Luzerne here. That's a photo of Lake Luzerne. But if you go into the law, you'll see that there is a whole section about exemptions and deferrals. And I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to hit a couple highlights. One exemption is if the real property that is getting conveyed is not to be inhabited, and the building is going to be demolished, and they're going to build a whole new building and build a whole new septic system that will meet all the new standard or current standards. Then they can submit an affidavit saying that's what they're planning on doing, and they do not have to comply with the septic inspection of the old system. And then one of the other pieces in here is I'm calling it winter weather deferral. So basically, if it's, your transfer is supposed to be taking place in the middle of the winter and you can't get out there and can't do a septic inspection, you will be allowed 6 months after the conveyance to conduct the inspection. I think that's an important practical exemption, or I should say deferral. And then the other one that the committee added recently is that where the existing septic system is beyond 250 feet from the water body, you can be exempted from the inspection requirement if you submit to the code enforcement department a letter from a licensed engineer certifying that the system is more than 250 feet away. So the idea here is that you might have a lot that has water frontage, but it's a long lot, where the lot starts at the water body and then, deep, thanks. And then it stretches away from the water body. Say you've got, your system is way back, 1,000 feet from the water body, you wouldn't have to do the inspection. So that was a new exemption that we included. If you go to the next one, Amanda, the next section is all about the failures. And we heard about this way back from our own county planning department when Chris Belden gave us that presentation in 2019. And then now you'll see all of these examples folded into the law that talk about when you have, for instance, no septic tank or a metal septic tank, or the inspector finds pooling of sewage, or the dye test, if one is conducted, shows that there's leakage out into the environment, or if the inspector finds backups into the structure, the building, all of those things are going to be failures that the inspector has to basically ding the person on. And then they would have to come up with a remediation plan that is submitted to the codes department. And then they would go forward with implementing that plan. And as I said before, if there's anything in the implementation that requires them to go to the town local board of health for approval, then they still have to do that. If they have to build a whole new septic system, which is worst case scenario, they would need, my understanding is they would need to have that designed by a licensed engineer. So some of those things we added some language in there to just clarify, if you do need a whole new system, you have to comply with all of the new code and all of those requirements and get all your local and state approvals if needed. And there was a lot of discussion about number 11 in the law, which says every substantial failure or substantial nonconformity with the requirements of Department of Health Appendix 75A or local municipal regulations, that would be considered a failure as well. And the language is maybe not as clear as some would like, but we decided, this was a discussion we had yesterday, that we will leave it like that. It will leave some discretion to the inspector to make the determination as to whether or not there is a failure or non-compliance there. But we did add the language saying examples include if the size of the septic tank is less than 75% of the required capacity. So for instance, under the New York State Department of Health regs in Appendix 75A, if you have 5 bedrooms in the house, you look up on this table and it tells you how big a septic tank you need to have for a 5-bedroom building. And the other one is if a setback is less than 75% of the required distance from, say, a well. We really don't want to keep wells or septics that are that close to a well kind of thing. So those are the examples. Those are basically all the ones that are included in Queensberry and Bolton as well. So, you know, we did not reinvent the wheel there. If you go to the next slide, Amanda. I think, yep. Okay. So as I mentioned before, all of the administration and enforcement will be through Warren County Codes Department. So Charles Wallace's office will be handling all of the administrative paperwork. Remember, the inspectors are hired by the property owner. So we don't have people from the county running out to do inspections. The inspections are done by the third-party inspector. A report gets sent to Charles Wallace, and then he would send back, you know, say if everything worked out fine, that he would just send back a certification saying your inspection is fine, your conveyance is allowed to go forward. If there's something wrong, then they would have to work out the remediation plan, and that has to be implemented going forward. If there's any problems in that process, we did build in, this is something we had talked about way back with stakeholders too, a process for appealing to the county Board of Supervisors if there was some sort of problem from Charles's office. Say somebody didn't agree with a determination that Charles made or his office. It would come through, the appeal would come through the County Facilities Committee. And that was a change that we made recently to put it into the oversight committee that deals with buildings and codes. Hopefully that won't be happening a lot, but that's in there. And I think it's an important way for people to have some flexibility if there's something in our law that they want to try to appeal or get a variance from, that they'd have that mechanism to do so. But again, we are not providing variances from local requirements. Still have to go to local Board of Health to get that kind of variance. All right, so this is my last slide. The next steps are, we did at the committee meeting yesterday pass through to the full board our resolution. So that will be before the county board at our next full board meeting. So today was a presentation to everybody about what will be in there, and then that will be our day for discussion. And I hope that everyone will put their faith in the special committee, that we did our homework and did a good job here, which I think we do, and put it forward for a public hearing at the November board meeting. So October meeting and then public hearing in November.
A couple things, Supervisor Bramer. Number one, a clerk of the board will send out the PowerPoint and the documents that go with it out to the full board, so everybody has it.
Okay.
You can also put it on the website, so it's clearly available, you know, to all the public. But secondly, Tammy, just for the record, confirmed that this New York State Septic System Replacement Program award was for $340,000. So just an FYI on that. But I know you'll probably have a lot of questions here, and we'll let you coordinate those questions, Supervisor.
Sure. I'm looking at you, Mike.
Thank you very much. If you may, I'd like to talk, or I have a question for a couple of supervisors in the room. Supervisor Leggett, Supervisor Thomas, Supervisor Hogan. Do any of you plan to opt out? And if so, why? Because I'm curious about the fact that opt-out is not only because you don't want to, but you have your own law. So what I'm getting at, is there more compromise that we need to do for the next month or two to get this law to the point where everyone can sign in for it and adopt instead of doing it today? So I'm just trying to dig into this a little bit more to find out what some of the opposition is and what are some of the differences between the local towns. So Supervisor Leggett, if you don't mind, and maybe we'll go around the room, that supervisors of the towns.
Just Supervisor Leggett, really quick, there is no action that's taken at workshop, Supervisor Wild.
No, I understand.
Okay, you said instead of doing it today. So I just wanted the public to be aware, we do not take action at workshop.
Well, I'm just talking about instead of doing it today, meaning the board meeting that's coming up. But I'd just like to hear from the other supervisors in terms of what they think about their laws versus this law. And why not adopt this law if that's what your plan is or not?
Yeah, the fact is, according to this proposed local law, town Chester would be exempted because we do have and have had for 15 years a septic inspection upon transfer law on the books. So we are going in the reverse side. We are opting in to and we would delete our local law and join in on the county's
Okay,
law.
good, thank you. Supervisor Thomas, would you mind?
Yeah, well, I can't speak for the town board, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do opt out of it. We have a hamlet where there's a lot of small lots and we don't have a septic sewer system. And it'll probably, we've done a feasibility study on a sewer system for that part of the town. And we're looking at $10 million, and town of Stony Creek does not have $10 million. And we probably don't register that high on the pecking order of the state list. So it could be a long time before that were to come into place. And that could put people in our hamlet area, if this included everywhere in the county, into a situation where they could try to sell their house and not be able to sell their house because they don't have a lot big enough or separation from another property to accomplish what needs to be accomplished. And that's, that's the concern that
Okay,
some of us have.
thank you. That just brings up another point of compromise. Supervisor Hogan, do you have any thoughts about this?
I do. Johnsburg's in a similar circumstance to Chestertown, where since 2007, we've had an inspection on transfer on the books. Ours, however, was written in such a way that it's actually unenforceable because it requires an engineer to sign off, and there are no engineers currently doing that. So we're very much looking, well, like Frank, I'm going to say I can't speak for my town board. I sincerely hope that they do not opt out of this. We, like Stony Creek, are seeking to build a sewer, especially in our hamlet where the lot sizes are so small that you can't possibly meet today's standards without an easement onto your neighbor or, some kind of weird circumstance. So I hope my board does not choose to opt out. But yeah, we will also be correcting something that's been, like I said, unenforceable for a long time now. So I'm looking forward to this. I, like you though, kind of wish it applied to all properties in the county.
Maybe we'll get there. And Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I'm going to keep on going through the list. Supervisor Smith, I see you on the Zoom. Would you have any comments that you'd like to share about whether the town of Horicon would opt in, opt out?
You're on mute, Sylvia.
Still on mute, Sylvia.
Tammy, can you unmute her on your end?
You're still muted.
It's
There you
okay.
go.
Okay. Well, I have concerns because we have a lot more bodies of water. We have 9 other bodies of water besides the town, Brant Lake and Scroon Lake. We have Beaver Pond, Crystal Lake, Burnt Pond, Valentine Pond, Smith Pond, which is Wakanda, Clearwater Lake, Sherman Lake, Hidden Pond, and Brant Lake Creek. So I think at this point, the board is not in favor. We're working on our own law, and we do follow almost everything as it is, but I'm not just sure where the board will go. We have to treat them all the same, fairly, because we have a lot of homes being built, a lot of homes around these other bodies of water that we have. So I'm not sure.
Thank you, Sylvia. Edna, are you online? Maybe, maybe not.
No, I'm here.
Hello.
Hi, Mike. I'm not sure either. I can't speak for my board, but I know we have been talking about working on our own law. But we do have a sewer though, and I have like 500 households that are connected to the sewer. So we're in a little bit different situation than a town that has no sewer at all. But we are definitely, Mike, will be working, I know, on our own law. I can't tell you about opting in or out because I believe that should be the board's decision.
Thank you very much, Edna. I guess My comment is, it sounds like we have some more compromise to do because we need to get all the towns stopped in on this.
If I may. Just to clarify, if you look at Appendix A, those are the water bodies that are affected by this local law. And it's not every single pond in every single place.
No, I understand. It just seems like there's some opposition within the individual towns still about creating their own septic laws. And I'm curious if
Well, I
it's
would
related
say-
to home rule, or is it related to the fact that?
I'll speak to that. I'll speak for Stony Creek. Stony Creek's a small town, you know. We get about $300,000 in sales tax money. Our tax rate is $5.09 a thousand. So, or 100,000, however you want, you know, per thousand. So now you're talking about adding another burden to the people that, first of all, have a hard time paying their taxes. And another regulation for them. And another burden to the town to come up with this law and enforce it. You know, I have one maintenance person, right? I have no enforcement whatsoever of anything other than the sheriff's department and building codes and the state police. So where do you want me to get this money to enforce all these laws and come up with all these regulations and keep track of all this stuff and hire the people to do it?
That's a good point.
It is a good point. And as I said before, like, this is one of the reasons to run it through county codes department, because not every town has the capability to do it. On the other hand, this isn't going to preempt any town from going farther than we have. If they want to cover, you know, some of those other lakes that Supervisor Smith was talking about, they can do that for equities purposes. I'm not sure that they're quite there yet, but they can't, you know, they could. Yes, Jack.
Yes, Chairwoman Bramer. I think that this committee's done a wonderful job on developing this draft. I think it gives every community an opportunity if they chose to go in the direction they can. I think that's very positive. I understand financial hardships that other communities have, but I think this is this draft has been done. This committee has done a real good job on putting this local law together, and I'm planning on supporting it when it goes to the board. So, kudos to the committee that was involved. To take the time and effort to reach out to the communities and get their input on this issue. It's been a long time coming.
Thanks.
You know, and part of the financial aspects of this, part of that is just due to the Department of Health in the individual towns and what the state has done. Septic systems are okay, right? We just didn't maintain them. And that was not part of the Department of Health necessarily, unless there was a major flaw. So maybe we need to think about finding some way to deal with the financial hardship in some areas, right? To be able to make this work. And that's part of the policy that we need to be thinking about is we're coming up with a new law.
Maybe putting some money behind the capital plan?
Well, I'm not sure where the money's going to come from, but to make this work, you need to have it, in my mind, across the county. And if we have financial hardships that we're creating by creating a local law, then what are we doing? We should be finding a mechanism to help support it and make it happen. So I'm not sure what that answer is. I'm just
I don't know
throwing,
what the
right?
answer is there either, Mike. Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
But certainly for like Johnsburg, the Hamlet, and for Stony Creek and for Hague, they need help. They need money with building out that sewer infrastructure. Even in Hague, where they have one, there were people who applied for the money for the septic replacement funding so that they can connect to the sewer. You know, and the money unfortunately is not eligible for that use, but where we already have sewer, we should be expanding it so that people can hook up and have their sewage treated most effectively. But yeah, I don't think we're gonna have an answer for that today unless we can use all $6 million that we got from the ARPA funding.
Supervisor Wild is on that committee if that's passed at the board here in a
Yeah.
few weeks. And I think Supervisor, that's time well spent to talk about how other counties are utilizing for some of these needs or even in grant-based programs. But there'll be a lot of dialogue around that ARPA. I don't think though, if we strive for perfection here, I think we're going to miss the bigger picture. And this is something that our county has worked on for a long time and our community has told us there's a need. And I applaud the efforts of everyone on the board who has worked on this.
Yeah,
But
please.
I think there were a couple of questions
Yeah.
from Supervisor Leggett, Supervisor Thomas, Supervisor McGowan.
Yeah, just to be clear, as we're going through this meeting and ending up, is there is that opt-out that was put in so that it recognizes each town's uniqueness and say, this doesn't apply to us and doesn't go forward. And also it's to start somewhere, and that's on the most of the high value properties. We have a 0.16 acre lot being sold on the Schroon River for $275,000. I don't think they need financial assistance to replace their system if they're able to do that. So most of these properties that we're talking about are not hardship cases. There will be hardship cases out there, and there should be a way to deal with that. But that also goes into the market price for these properties. And somebody's looking and saying, I would offer you 275, but I need to replace the system and it's going to cost 25,000. I'll give you 250. So you work it out there, and that's why it's at transfer. And I forgot what this other thought was about it. I guess we'll let it go at that. Thank you.
It'll come back to you.
What you're gonna have
He'll
for
get
dinner
me there.
tonight?
Supervisor Thomas.
Thank you. I don't want to give the impression that we're Stony or myself. I'll speak for myself. I can't speak for the town board, but I'm not opposed to containing this and not polluting the water and having it done properly. I'm just concerned about putting undue burdens on people that really can't afford the undue burdens. But as far as not coming up with a law for our own town, I'm not opposed to that. In fact, probably 10 years ago, or I'll say 10 years ago, I brought that up to the town board and I got shot down at that time. But, I don't think that, I know I'm not opposed to coming up with a sewer law, whatever. And I also think as far as this law, I think we're at a good starting point. I think if you include every property and every creek at this point, I think you're going to have some difficulty. I think in a year or two, I think that's definitely a step you could take, get some experience doing this, see how it works and see what the issues are.
Supervisor McGowan, then Supervisor Beatty, then Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you. I really do believe Supervisor Leggett said it nice, and our thoughts in trying to create everything, and I believe having a board where people could come for a grievance if certain applications, and I believe maybe that's a possibility that a hardship one should be something set into a lot of this. So, but Craig really kind of nailed it on the higher end, but also too, this is as he said, it's transfer. This is at the time of a transfer. So that's going to be a sale. Okay. And there's a possibility that it could be worked out within the negotiations of the sale. Like say it's $125,000 to people, chances are the people coming in, they like the property, they're going to upgrade it and they're going to, so it could, there's so many options here. I'm happy to hear all the other towns are working forward toward coming up with their own laws, but I would ask them to at least join in until they have their law in place. The algae blooms, are here. If you look at the study of just Lake George alone, what they call the dead areas, out in the lake with the nutrients. So, starting somewhere, we really tried to cover everything and then leave some avenues, for the options. So people had some more choices. But really, if you talk to Queensberry and now Bolton's into it, the majority of the systems that are being inspected, a lot of them are just repairs. There's not a full-fledged replacement. And yes, there are going to be times that the lot's not going to be large enough. And we brought this up in the committee. It's better to have a system that's at 80% than one that is not functioning well at all. So, if we can't do it, because there are newer systems coming online, every year, you'll see it in the new enhanced systems that are out there, where you can drop them down. And it was brought up in committee, we are at one, they said actually you could drink the water at the end. I don't know about that one yet, but they do it up in space. So, you never know. But
Well, Supervisor McGowan, I would never try to interrupt you, although I just did. We have 6 minutes left before I have to completely close down our workshop unless we waive, we all agree to stay a little later. But I want you to continue. I just wanted you to know that.
Well, now that you're interrupting me, I completely lost the whole thought that I was going.
You're up
You were
in
talking about
space
going to space.
time, drinking water.
Once again, I was up in space, but
Drinking
no,
water.
but really, my main purpose is I really would hope to get the support that we need, all right, to move this forward, and we can work out some of the finer things, and just keep in mind that we have to keep our precious water bodies, because that really is our bread and butter for this area. And it does help with a lot of things that we offer everybody who visits here. And without it, we won't have those people. And then we'd have to worry about our taxes even more. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Beatty, then Supervisor Hogan. And if no one objects, we'll give Supervisor Bramer the last word.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I thought the committee did a great job. Ms. Bramer, you did a phenomenal job with a very, very difficult subject matter, but one that's important to everyone in this room. And I think we all agree on that the water in the county, obviously in the United States and the world, is so valuable to all of us. But there's also unique situations and unique towns, and you put that into consideration. And challenges. Each town has some challenges that another town would not have. So at the end of the day, I like the fact that you have an amendment, an appendix that can be altered and added to. I think this is an excellent first step. I think the ability to giving towns their own say, which I also like that type of provision in there, that the town can say, this is what we feel is best for our people. I like that too. And I just want to, again, finish with, you did a great job. It's a phenomenal first step, and it's a big first step. And I'll be supporting it at the board meeting when it comes to a vote. Thanks.
Thank you, Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you. I'll be succinct. Supervisors McGowan and Beatty already touched on this, but the greater good of this legislation isn't only capturing failing systems. It's the messaging. We're telling the people of Warren County that our waters and our environment are our future, our economy, and our health. And I really feel that that's the biggest piece. Whether towns opt in or not, that message is getting out there. So thank you to you and your committee for all your hard work.
Supervisor Bramer.
On that note, I'll just reiterate the thanks to the committee for coming to the table and working through this with sincerity to get something done that is a compromise. And I think that we can get it through the board. And I really do hope that everyone will support it, vote for it, and allow it to stay in effect in their towns. But we did build that uniqueness into it. So thanks, everybody. And thank you for the time tonight at the workshop, Chairwoman.
Great. Thank you very much. At this point in time, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the 2 hours today to join us for the workshop. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow, I believe, right? Personnel and Finance. And the meeting is closed.